Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's 9:01, and I'd like to call this meeting of the Michigan Strategic Fund to order. Before we begin, Natalie, please conduct a roll call to confirm board attendance.
Dr. Affolter Kane,
Present.
Mr. Eklund, Treasurer Eubanks,
Present.
Mr. Groen,
Present.
Mr. Groen,
Present.
thank you. Mr. Hutcherson,
Here.
Mr. Cap,
Here.
Mr. Myring,
Here.
Ms. Nelson,
Here.
Mr. Richardson, Ms. Tellier,
Here.
Mr. Thalen,
Here.
and Ms. Warner.
Present.
Thank you.
Excuse me, you skipped me. This is Charlie Rothstein.
Oh, sorry about that, Charlie.
Yep.
All
I'm-
right. Thank you. We can go ahead and proceed. We have quorum. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you, Natalie. We have received 6 pre-registered virtual public comments for today's meeting. Per the MSF public comment policy, each public comment is limited to 3 minutes each. To ensure the accuracy of our meeting minutes, I'd like to ask you to please identify yourself before offering a motion. Additionally, Natalie will conduct a roll call for each vote. Natalie, I'll turn it over to you to explain the public comment process for today's meeting.
Thanks, Jen. We will now open the meeting for in-person public comment. So for those of you physically present in the room wishing to speak during public comment, please approach the podium at this time. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes each, and you must state your name and city of residence before providing your remarks.
Mundy Township, that is near Flint, Michigan. I am a current Mundy Township resident in Genesee County near Flint. I spoke before the MEDC last month. I am here again to remind you, we, the community of Mundy Township, just on the outskirts of the city of Flint, do not want any mega site that will build anything in our community that will poison our community. We do not want another Flint water crisis. And with all the publicity across the country about the water poisoning the city of Flint residents, I would like you to consider the possibility that this will happen again. Do you want your name on it? Thank you.
Thank you. You can proceed with your public comment.
Hello. My name is Leah Davis. I'm from Mundy Township, Swartz Creek. MEDC needs to prove it to the Flint and Genesee County community that these semiconductor and battery plants aren't going to leak more toxins into their environment, water lines, and homes. We've already had enough abuse from the bad decisions of government and corporate malpractice. You, as a quasi-government agency, need to prove it to the citizens of the state of Michigan that this renewable energy industry is not just a leech of our natural resources in Michigan. You are taking our money without our permission and using it against us without quality assurance and checks and balances. Where is the integrity in your appointed duties? Ask yourself the question, are you acting in the best interests of the people's behalf? Or are you merely a puppet doing backdoor deals with the powers that appointed you? We should be spending our money wisely to promote clean water, preservation, and filtration systems to keep Michigan pure and to restore our industry for agriculture, habitat, health, and recreation. Do you ever think for yourself out of the box? Or do you always just do what you're told to save face with your peers, your pocketbooks, and your comfort zones? One thing many of us as individuals don't think about is that we as earth dwellers don't really own this land because God does. We are merely just borrowing it from him for a short time. He lent it to us to care for, cultivate, and leave in much better shape for the next generation's welfare. It was not given to us to abuse, pollute, and destroy for political or economical gains. What imprint will you be leaving for yourself in the name of God on this beautiful countryside and Great Lakes Peninsula for our children's generations to come with the decisions you are making today? Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks this morning. We will now open the meeting for virtual public comment. We've received 6 pre-registered virtual public comments. For those of you who have pre-registered, I will call your name and the last 4 digits of your phone number to signal your turn to speak. Once prompted, you must use the raise hand function and I will prompt you to unmute your microphone. If you're dialed in on your phone, you'll need to press *9 to use the raise hand function and then press *6 to unmute yourself. With that, we will start with Brandy Sweet, phone number ending in 1458. Ms. Sweet, are you on the line?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please proceed with your public comment.
Okay, I'd just like to first say it was really wrong that the last executive committee meeting had no option to attend virtually. The MEDC has been implementing new ways to silence residents and try to only ensure that you're recognized as one of the best economic organizations in the nation. Too bad most have caught on and know you have failed miserably at that. There is no accountability or transparency happening here. And as I've pointed out numerous other times, there is absolutely no environmental consideration occurring, especially prior to allotting taxpayer dollars to potentially hazardous developments. Goshen is completely behind in every aspect. They told us community members groundbreaking would occur in July 2023 and proclaimed environmental studies were happening and completed, which is and was still untrue. Goshen still is at the beginning stages. The lack of care and knowledge is and has been extremely concerning. Just like with the Marshall mega site, we know the Marshall mega site just lost over $6 million in incentives, yet you all continue to hail the project as potentially transformational for Marshall and the region, despite 1/3 reduction in proposed full-time jobs and despite the numerous violations that have been issued to the Marshall mega site from Eagle. Contractor activities are already negatively affecting the area. Sediment-laden stormwater has constantly continued to run from the site into the Kalamazoo River. I encourage everyone to check the reports and photos. It's all public on Eagle's My Enviro portal. Recently, on July 10th, one of the violations determined more planning needs to be put into scheduling and staging of the project. The report went on to say that the SESC plan is currently being revised due to lack of a detailed timeline for final site stabilization. As part of the inspections, Eagle reviewed construction stormwater certified operator logs. While certified operator logs were available for review, overall, the logs contained a lack of detail and did not note the lack of permanent stabilization of the stormwater basins, drain water swales, and many upland areas of the site. Certified operator logs need to identify any deficiencies in a SC measures in any discharge of sediment or other polluting materials off-site or to surface waters of the state. The failure to conduct inspections in accordance with requirements of Rule 323.2190 is a violation of permit by rule. The Marshall mega site is already polluting and not reporting it as the laws states they should. And you all think we're supposed to trust these facilities to report if they have a chemical spill or other occurrence while up and running? The MEDC is only damaging pure Michigan. Most residents aren't against economic development, but what good is economic development without the health of the environment and the citizens? Environmental consideration and local community support needs to start being taken here. Environmental impact statements should be made part of the criteria prior to handing over taxpayer dollars.
Thank you, Ms. Sweet. That does conclude the 3-minute time allotment. We will now move on to Jessica Sharp with the phone number ending in 9004. Do not see Ms. Sharp on the line this morning. We will now move on to Marjorie Steele with the phone number ending in 8944.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please proceed with your public comment.
Okay, great. My name is Marjorie Steele. I am the founder of the Economic Development Responsibility Alliance of Michigan. I'm also a resident of Mecosta County, which is, of course, about 5 miles as the crow flies from the Goshen megasite. I just want to reinforce the comments of my neighbors from Swartz Creek, as well as Ms. Sweet, also from Mecosta County here. It's very clear that the MSF board is not following its mandate to act in the best interests of the stakeholders that you represent, and considering that you are slinging around hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars, the stakeholders that you represent are us, the taxpayers. As Brandy mentioned, the Marshall grant is already getting clawed back, and we are already seeing serious environmental violations and contamination of the Kalamazoo River, despite the fact that they haven't even begun construction yet. I just want to urge all of you on the board to stop for a moment and to consider the personal liability that each of you are taking on every time you not only vote to approve one of these multi-million-dollar projects, but every time you do so without asking any follow-up questions. When we talk about the lack of due diligence, one of the things that we as residents have been, by your board, one of the things that we as residents have been particularly appalled by has been the lack of curiosity, the simple, straightforward yes saying. Your board are not asking questions to these developers. You're not following up on data. It doesn't even appear that any of you have read these packets. I want you to all stop and consider for a moment personally what liability this kind of behavior has already incurred on you and what liability it will bring on you. You don't really seem interested in preserving taxpayer rights. You don't really seem interested in following the mandate of following the will of constituents and taxpayers. You certainly don't seem interested in any environmental protection. The jig is up on the lie of green new energy. This is just a money grab. We all know it. So if you're not interested in protecting any of those, maybe you can be protected, and you can be interested in protecting your own reputation, because that's what's at stake here. And your behavior as a board is a serious liability to each of your own professions. That's all. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. We will now move on to Julie Bryant with the phone number ending in 2018.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good morning. Julie Bryant, resident of Squaw Creek, Marshall, Michigan. I live in one of the 200 homes south of the Kalamazoo River and 1/4 mile south of the mega disaster that you all funded to build EV batteries and do business with the CCP. I'm glad to see that you took some of the incentives back from Ford. According to a letter from the Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party to Homeland Security, it says, the committee is requesting that the Forced Labor Enforcement Task Force immediately places contemporary Amprex Tech Co., CATL, on the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act entity list. Newly discovered information reveals that CATL is affiliated with Xinjiang XPCC, a paramilitary and state-owned system, and the only entity expressly named in the UFLPA status due to its egregious forced labor practices. As the U.S. Department of State, Treasury, and Commerce have jointly stated, businesses and individuals that do not exit supply chain ventures or investments connected to Xinjiang could run a high risk of violating U.S. law. CATL is closely affiliated with the XPCC, a CCP-run paramilitary organization, and connected to serious human rights abuse against ethnic minorities in Xinjiang, including mass arbitrary detention and severe physical abuse targeting Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities in the region. This directly involves Ford's plan to bring in Cato's equipment and the components which are being sourced by slave labor. We abolished slavery in 1865. Why would it be okay to work with companies like this? Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to James Ram with a phone number ending in 6788. James, are you on the line?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed with your public comment.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jim Ream, President and CEO of Bay Future, Bay County's economic development organization. I want to thank the Michigan Strategic Fund Board for allowing me to speak on behalf of the Dow Chemical Company project, which is item 5 on today's agenda. Retaining Dow in Midland and Bay counties will result in keeping the workforce of about 5,000 employees in the state of Michigan and specifically in our region. This project will also support approximately 350 construction jobs. Dow is a very active and visible supporter in the Great Lakes Bay region, and this project will allow them to remain committed to its role as an economic driver in our region and across Michigan. Dow's presence is an anchor for future development in the area by both the company and its partners and customers. We are thankful and excited to be working with Dow on this project, and based on the historical growth of the business locally and existing industry opportunities, we believe that Dow will prosper in Michigan and the Great Lakes Bay region for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to Tony Stamas with the phone number ending in 3336.
Well, good morning. Thank you. I'm Tony Stamas with the Midland Business Alliance, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts with the MSF board and the MEDC team. Grateful for your efforts on behalf of our state. Midland's long been labeled as the city of modern explorers, and no small part of that is the legacy of Dow. As a lifelong resident of Midland, I've been fortunate to see and learn of the company's focus on innovation, exploration, and research that dates back to the earliest elements of Dow, set forth by H.H. Dow. This long-term commitment has really enabled them to survive and grow over more than 125-year legacy in environments of constant change across the globe. And while that global presence is extensive, we are so fortunate in Midland that the Dow leadership team and team members are passionate in their involvement in our community, the Great Lakes Bay region, and the state. Certainly, we see it in a myriad of ways, including the recent Dow Championship LPGA tournament here in Midland or the Memorial Cup hockey tournament in Saginaw, but also an everyday focus in engagement and volunteerism with their employees and team at every level. The project you're considering today is especially exciting because it demonstrates a continued commitment to innovation, research, and development. Safe to say there were lots of questions several years ago when Dow engaged in a transformative spin that changed the landscape of businesses with DuPont and the creation of Corteva Agriscience, other incredible community partners. Well, this project reaffirms that Dow legacy in our state, region, and certainly here in Midland. As we hear economic development is discussed in our state, it is regularly noted the critical nature of growing and strengthening our knowledge economy, and specifically in research and development. This project fits directly with that priority and would be a great investment in the future. Lastly, this project is exciting in its ability to retain the incredible base of research-focused talent that our community is blessed to house. The human element is critical to continued success and one that cannot be discounted. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your public comment this morning. That does conclude our virtual public comment period for today's meeting. With that, I will turn it back over to you, Jen.
Thank you, Natalie. Natalie, are there any communications at this time?
Yes, the fiscal year 2024 quarterly 3 report from the Chief Compliance Officer was included in the briefing packet.
Great, thank you, Natalie. Now we're on to subcommittee reports. Mr. Hutcherson, are there any readouts from the Finance and Investment Subcommittee meeting you would like to share?
Just some general discussions that were productive associated with some of the items that we're discussing, but no formal report outside of that. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Mr. Hutcherson. Ms. Warner, are there any readouts from the Policy and Planning Subcommittee meeting you would like to share?
Yeah, thanks so much. We did a deep dive on two of the projects, including the MCRP amendment and the final financial reporting waivers. Spent quite a bit of time on the last two items, but other than that, that's it.
Thanks, Ms. Warner. Now we'll move on to the consent agenda. There are 6 items on the consent agenda today. Are there any questions regarding the consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll need a motion to conduct a roll call vote.
Affolter Kane moves. Warner seconds.
We have a motion by Dr. Affolter Kane, seconded by Ms. Warner to approve the consent agenda. Natalie, please conduct a roll call vote.
Dr. Affolter Kane,
Yes.
Mr. Eklund,
Yes.
Treasurer Eubanks,
Yes.
Mr. Groen,
Yes.
Mr. Hutcherson,
Yes.
Mr. Cap,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Myring,
Yes.
Mr. Rothstein,
Yes.
Ms. Tellier,
Yes.
Mr. Thalen,
Yes.
Ms. Warner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The motion passes. Now on to the Attract, Retain, and Grow Business section of the agenda. At this time, we welcome Kristen Armstrong, Senior Vice President of Business Development Programs and Execution, to present resolutions to approve a critical industry program performance-based grant, a 10-year extension of an MSF designated Renaissance zone, termination of a Michigan Economic Growth Authority tax credit, and a state essential services assessment exemption to the Dow Chemical Company and Dow Silicones Corporation. Kristen?
Thanks, Jen. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for your time and allowing me to present this exciting project to the board. First, I just want to acknowledge the hard work of my MEDC colleagues on this project, specifically Eric Wilford, Matt Chasness, Brenda Flory, Matt McCauley, whose work on this project allowed us to bring it forward today. The board's being presented today with a request to support the retention of at least 5,000 jobs in Michigan and capital investment of at least $785 million by the Dow Chemical Company and Dow Silicones Corporation in the Midland and Auburn facilities. To support that job retention and investment, we are recommending a critical industry program grant of $120 million, a 15-year 100% state essential services assessment exemption, and a 10-year extension of the existing Renaissance zone and the addition of some additional parcels to the existing MSF designated Renaissance zone in the Midland facilities. In connection with this transaction, the company has also agreed to forego the remaining years on its mega tax credit going forward, starting with tax year 2024. The investment by Dow is critical to enhancing and supporting the company's manufacturing and research and development activities in Michigan. These activities are essential to continuing the growth and support of key industries in Michigan and industries the MSF and the MEDC in particularly are supporting, including electric vehicles, EV batteries, semiconductors, electronics, and clean energy technologies. The company's impact on Midland and the Greater Bay region is significant, and it is critical to maintain these employees in the area, particularly given that the wages of these positions are well above the regional median wage. The proposed project and related incentive package ensure Dow remains an anchor company in Michigan, and we believe sets us up for future growth and expansion. With that, I'd like to welcome Jeff Stoutenberg, Director of State Government Affairs for Dow, and Shannon Huber, the lead site manufacturing director for their sites in the northern part of North America, to talk a little bit about the project. Jeff, if you are on the line, please feel free to speak on the project.
Yeah, good morning. As Kristen mentioned, my name is Jeff Stoutenberg. I'm the Director of State Government Affairs for Dow, and I'm joined here by Shannon Huber. She's our lead site manufacturing director for our sites in the northern part of North America. That includes day-to-day leadership of our Michigan operations industrial park. At some point this morning, you'll likely hear one or both of us refer to that as our MyOps I part. That's where we're joining you from this morning. At the outset, as Kristen just said, I want to thank the team at the MEDC. The MEDC has really been by the company side for many, many years, but particularly over the last handful of years, as our company has navigated the transformation of our company itself and our industry. And that support has been frankly critical to our ability to continue to innovate and manufacture from right here in Michigan. And that's important for a lot of reasons, but it's important because Michigan has always been at the center of Dow innovation, going back to the company's founding more than 125 years ago. And there are many quotes. If you travel around Midland, you'll see them on buildings. There are many quotes attributed to our founder, Herbert Henry Dow, or H.H. Dow. One of those jumps out to me this morning, and it's this: if you can't do it better, why do it? If you can't do it better, why do it? And for somebody who's a non-engineer, non-chemist at a company full of engineers and chemists, I can tell you that's a pretty high bar to live up to. But it's a philosophy that's guided our company throughout our history, and it's guided us very well. I give you just one example from our past. When many companies were scaling back, pulling back on their R&D activities during the Great Depression, Dow continued to invest, and we stayed the course. And as a result of that commitment to R&D, that commitment to innovation, our Midland laboratories became known as idea factories. And those idea factories produced products and product lines that continue to be bedrocks for the company today. And I don't share that story with you just because it's a cool story from the past, but we believe it illustrates the path forward for the company. And that's a relatively simple one, but important. And it's that our growth and our success will always be fueled by the innovation that comes from Team Dow. Innovation plus manufacturing has always been a winning formula for the company. And it's a formula we believe will serve Michigan well in the future. As a leading global material supplier, as Kristen mentioned, Dow participates in many, many market segments and supply chains, including several that are of high priority to both the MEDC and the MSF. Electric vehicles, and that's under the hood in the cabin. That's the vehicle itself, plus the battery and the components that make up the battery, semiconductors, electronics, and clean energy, and a host of other areas. And that market participation is true, especially true for our silicones business, whose manufacturing we're talking about here today in Midland. Their products enable the lightweighting, the connectivity, the safety of nearly every vehicle type on the road today and tomorrow. As well as innovative and sustainable building materials. When we talk about energy efficient buildings of the future, those are all materials enabled and brought to you by silicone chemistry. Innovation and manufacturing, as Kristen mentioned again, Kristen covered a lot of good stuff here. As Kristen mentioned, it's key to the long-term economic prosperity of the Great Lakes Bay region, which again has been our home for more than 125 years. We believe that investing in these assets and modernizing these assets will serve as an anchor to ensure that the region and the state continue to be home to thousands of high-paying jobs that far, far exceed both the regional and the statewide median wage. And that's true regardless of whether the job is in manufacturing, R&D, public affairs, accounting, business or professional service, any career that spans the company, that is true. And those jobs have corresponding benefits, as you would imagine: healthcare, retirement savings, paid family and medical leave, incentive pay, as well as what's become increasingly important from a talent attraction, talent retention perspective, wraparound support like childcare and caregiving assistance. I'd also like to just briefly mention, as Kristen said, our mutual agreement to forego the remaining years on the company's mega tax credit. We believe that that decision is in the best interest of our company. And in the context of the full incentive package that's under consideration today, it's what will best position us to make these investments and deliver on these commitments for the future. And in closing, I again just want to thank the team at the MEDC. Kristen named several of the individuals that we've been working with. There are many more over the years that have helped us get us to this point. So thank you again to the team at the MEDC, and we very much appreciate the MSF board's consideration here this morning. Shannon and I are here to answer whatever questions you may have.
Thanks, Jeff. And if I could just recap the transaction being proposed today, it's a critical industry program grant of up to $120 million, a 15-year 100% CESA exemption, a 10-year extension of the existing MSF run zone, in addition, and also adding a few additional parcels to that run zone. For the retention of 5,000 jobs and investment of $785 million. And again, with that transaction, we would also be proceeding with the termination of the remaining years of the mega tax credit. So please, we'll stop there and we'd be happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Kristen and Jeff. Board members, do you have any questions?
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for joining us today. Could you tell us a little bit about Dow's evaluation process for other sites and how Michigan stacked up compared to those?
Yeah, it's a good question, a fair question. So we operate in more than 30 countries around the world, and we have manufacturing operations and R&D operations in, I'm going to say, a handful of states. It's probably, without a map in front of me, somewhere between 8 and 12 to 13 states. Competition for investment is just that. It's competitive. It's competitive externally. It's competitive internally. So, we evaluated a number of sites to make these investments. And if you think about sort of 3 different buckets of investment within this project: site infrastructure, manufacturing, incremental manufacturing expansion, and research and development assets. The site infrastructure, obviously, it's centered here in Michigan operations in Midland. The silicone manufacturing operations, those are investments that the business needs to make, but frankly could be made at any site that has the capacity to add that production. And the R&D investments, as Tony Thomas mentioned in his opening comments, we have a robust talent pipeline here in Michigan. It's a workforce that's incredibly technically skilled, and it's been developed over a number of decades. But we have R&D operations in Texas and Pennsylvania and in other places around the world. So Michigan was where we wanted to make this investment, and with the support from the MSF and MDC, we believe we could make that investment here.
Do you have, for the 5,000 jobs that are being retained, what's the approximate average wage for those?
Yeah, the median wage is just shy of $100,000 a year, and that's like W-2 box 1. So it's does not include, or it's already had taken out of it. So it's pre-tax or tax deferred contributions. $99,960, I think, is the specific number that we share with the MEDC. The average wage is probably $25,000 to $30,000 higher than that when you factor in all employees here in Michigan.
And then can you give us a approximate timeline for the $785 million investment and kind of what that looks like going forward?
Yeah, so as Kristen mentioned, our agreement is to hit that spend total by 2032. The investments are critical pieces of both the site's operations and the ongoing work that happens at our R&D facilities. So it's work that we want to do as quickly as we can. It's also a market-driven, cash-constrained type of investment. So it's subject to market conditions and cash availability, frankly, but we intend to make those investments as quickly as we can based on contractor availability, starting probably as soon as we can, either this year or early next year, pending approval here, and then completing by 2032.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Hearing none, we will need to conduct 4 separate votes. For the first vote, we will vote to approve the Critical Industry Program grant to the Dow Chemical Company. A motion is needed to conduct a roll call vote. Do we have a motion?
Hutcherson moves.
Warner seconds.
We have a motion by Mr. Hutcherson, seconded by Ms. Warner, to approve the request. Natalie, please conduct a roll call vote.
Dr. Affolter-Kane,
Yes.
Mr. Eklund,
Yes.
Treasurer Eubanks,
Yes.
Mr. Groen,
Yes.
Mr. Hutcherson,
Yes.
Mr. Cap,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Meyering,
Yes.
Mr. Rothstein,
Yes.
Ms. Tellier, Ms. Tellier, Ms. Tellier.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Thalen,
Yes.
Ms. Warner.
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion passes and the recommendation is adopted. The second vote is to approve the State Essential Services Assessment Exemption to Dow Silicones Corporation. A motion is needed to conduct a roll call vote. Do we have a motion?
Warner motions.
Rothstein.
Tell your supports.
We have a motion by Ms. Warner, seconded by Mr. Rothstein to approve the request. Natalie, please conduct a roll call vote.
Dr. Afolter Kane,
Yes.
Mr. Eklund,
Yes.
Treasurer Eubanks,
Yes.
Mr. Groen,
Yes.
Mr. Hutcherson,
Yes.
Mr. Cap,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Myring,
Yes.
Mr. Rothstein,
Yes.
Ms. Tellier,
Yes.
Mr. Thalen,
Yes.
and Ms. Warner.
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion passes and the recommendation is adopted. The third vote is to approve the MSF designated Renaissance Zone extension, the Dow Chemical Company and Dow Silicones Corporation. A motion is needed to conduct a roll call vote. Do we have a motion?
Affolter Kane moves.
Warner seconds.
We have a motion by Dr. Affolter Kane, seconded by Ms. Warner to approve the request. Natalie, please conduct a roll call vote.
Dr. Afolter Kane,
Yes.
Mr. Eklund,
Yes.
Treasurer Eubanks,
Yes.
Mr. Groen,
Yes.
Mr. Hutcherson,
Yes.
Mr. Cap,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Myring,
Yes.
Mr. Rothstein,
Yes.
Ms. Tellier,
Yes.
Mr. Thalen,
Yes.
Ms. Warner.
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion passes and the recommendation is adopted. The fourth and final vote is to approve the Michigan Economic Growth Authority tax credit termination to the Dow Chemical Company. A motion is needed to conduct a roll call vote. Do we have a motion?
Warner motions.
Tellier supports.
We have a motion by Ms. Warner, seconded by Ms. Tellier to approve the request. Natalie, please conduct a roll call vote.
Dr. Afolter Kane,
Yes.
Mr. Eklund,
Yes.
Treasurer Eubanks,
Yes.
Mr. Groen,
Yes.
Mr. Hutcherson,
Yes.
Mr. Cap,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Myring,
Yes.
Mr. Rothstein,
Yes.
Ms. Tellier,
Yes.
Mr. Thalen,
Yes.
and Ms. Warner.
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion passes and the recommendation is adopted. Thank you to the MEDC team for presenting this and to Jeff and Shannon for being here with us today. And congratulations to Dow. Next, we'll move on to the administrative portion of the agenda. For our next item of business, we welcome Debbie Stalick, Commercial Real Estate Investment Manager, to present a resolution to allow for the waiver of certain financial reports currently required in Michigan Community Revitalization Program agreements. Debbie?
Thank you, Jen. Good morning, everybody. I'm Debbie Stalick with the Place Incentives team, and I'm here today to discuss a request that is centered around the financial reporting requirements in CRP agreements. One of the standard provisions within all CRP loan and equity award agreements is a requirement around financial reporting. This provision is drafted to give the MSF the right to demand financial information when and as needed to analyze project health and/or measure compliance. Current agreement language provides some flexibility in the timing and form of financial information collected. However, the language in legacy agreements mandates the annual submission of such financial information, regardless of whether there is cause to request it. At times, this information is unavailable or unable to be provided, for example, when a project is under construction and not yet complete, so there's really nothing to report, or when the senior lender's reporting requirements differ. This has resulted in a large number of amendment requests seeking board approval to waive or modify this reporting requirement. So in order to better manage the CRP portfolio, provide a more responsive customer experience, and more efficiently utilize the board's time, staff is requesting authorization for the appropriately designated compliance staff to waive the annual submission of financial statements or specific aspects of such statements in any legacy CRP agreement, provided that the awardee is otherwise in compliance with their agreement. The MSF retains the right to demand financial statements upon request, and no reasonable cause currently exists for the MSF to demand financial information from the awardee. As always, thank you for your time and consideration today, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Debbie. Are there any questions from board members? Hearing none, we'll need a motion to conduct a roll call vote.
Hutchinson moves.
Thank you.
Cap supports.
We have a motion by Mr. Hutcherson, seconded by Mr. Cap to approve the request. Natalie, please conduct a roll call vote.
Dr. Affolter Kane,
Yes.
Mr. Eklund,
Yes.
Treasurer Eubanks,
Yes.
Mr. Groen,
Yes.
Mr. Hutcherson,
Yes.
Mr. Cap,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Myring,
Yes.
Mr. Rothstein,
Yes.
Ms. Tellier,
Yes.
Mr. Thalen,
Yes.
and Ms. Warner.
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion passes and the recommendation is adopted. For the informational portion of the agenda and our last item of business, the monthly delegated authority report was included in the board's packet. Are there any questions regarding the report? Hearing none, we have reached the end of the agenda. Do board members have other items of business to discuss? Hearing none, it is 9:42 and I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.